Welcome to a TUSD robotics production. In this lesson, you will learn how to continue building the Rise robot in Onshape, steps 11 through 19, kind of, without the brain, and we're going to skip a couple steps. Here we go. Welcome back. This is lesson 3, and we're going to pick up right where we left off in step 11 of building the Rise robot for VexIQ. So as you can see, we have started to build two sides of the chassis, and where we left off was these 3 axles or pitch shafts that we put into this second left side of the chassis that we started to build. So what we're going to do now is we're going to continue to build the left side, and we're going to add 2 more of these corner connectors, the 5-hole corner connectors. So this is actually, the first corner connector is in step 11, and the second corner connector is added in step 12. So let's go to the insert menu, and we're going to actually insert 2 of them because that's going to be steps 11 and 12. So I scroll down, I'm looking for my 5-hole corner connector right here, 2 by wide, 2 by 2. I'm going to click on it and click in the space, but I'm actually going to click on it again and get a second one into my workspace because we're about to use 2. So I'm going to check mark to accept. So in step 11, you can see that this first corner connector that we're going to add is going to be this one. The opposite one is this one right here. And so you can see that we're going to turn this around, and it's going to go not on these last 2 holes, but the second to last 2 holes. So let me flip this back around. Actually, let me just center it with isometric and get back to where we're going and deselect that part. Okay, so let me zoom in a little bit. I'll go ahead and use this one. So I'm going to do a Fastener Mate. And I'm going to zoom in, and I'm actually going to do the bottom of this peg because that's what I want to be flush, not the top. So let's see if I can zoom in a little bit more. There we go, the bottom of the peg. All right, now I'm going to turn it around. Oops, can't see. Let me go isometric. Let me turn it around. And remember, it's not the last 2 holes, it's the second to last 2 holes. So I'm going to choose this one right here. Now, I'm not exactly sure which way that little extra overhang is going to go, but we'll find out. Okay, let's go. Zoom in a little bit right there. Let's see if that one works. And let's solve just to see what we're looking at here. Let's go back to isometric. Okay, so it looks like it needs to be turned. Let me go ahead and close out that extra Fastener Mate. I'm going to open and edit the one we just did, and let's rotate it. Oh, not that way. That looks pretty good right there. So let me check mark to accept, but flip it around, and we got 2 extra holes hanging off, just like we did on the other side. And that looks about right. Now, I do see that the overhang is going to the left on this one and to the right on this one. I'm not going to worry about that. But in building a robot in real life, you probably would just flip it. Okay, so now we're going to put this next one on. Let me go back to the isometric view to figure out where we're going. So if we look at step 12, you will see that the corner connector is going to be attached just like this one over here on the right side, and it's actually going to be holes 9 and 10 that attach to these 2 holes right here, hole 9 and hole 10. So I'm going to go ahead and use my Fastener Mate, and I'm going to scroll in, and I'm going to I want it to go this back side to go flush up against here. So I'm going to do this is actually hole 9 right here. So I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to rotate. Oop, I can't see what I'm doing. I'm going to go back to isometric. And I'm going to count from the very end, if I can get a good view here, 9 holes in. So 1 is behind here, 2 is behind here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This 9th hole right here, let me try and get a good upper portion of that. Zoom in a little bit. There we go, that top area right there. There we go. And I'm going to check mark to accept so I can kind of see what's going on and go back to my isometric view. All right, actually, it looks pretty good right there. Perfect. It looks like it might need to be pulled out just a hair. So I'm going to actually close out this extra fastener window that popped open. I'm going to right click and edit the fastener I just did. And let's offset it about, I think it's going to be on the Z. Let's try 0.1. Oh, wrong way. Let's try negative 0.1. Oh my gosh, it's just even too far. So let's do negative 0.05. Now your numbers might be a little different. That's totally fine. Didn't like my double decimal point there. Negative 0.05. Okay, that looks good. Let me check mark to accept. It looks perfect. Okay, nice. I'm going to go back to my isometric view, and you can see that our next step is to add the motor. So I'm going to insert another motor, and let me scroll down to find the smart motor. Now remember, this is on a computer, so I'm going to actually have to click this composite icon for the motor to show up since it was imported as a single part, a composite part. There it is right there. Let me go ahead and place it and check mark to accept. Okay, now the motor is actually facing the wrong way. So we need these holes on the motor constrained to these holes right here on the beam. And we're gonna use a Fastener Mate. So let me just go over to my Fastener Mate and let's pick this. I'm gonna actually do the one right above where the pitch shaft should go. So I'm gonna zoom in right here, and that looks about right. I think I kind of want there we go. I want the top portion right there. Let me zoom out a little bit. Now I want this motor to flip, so I'm actually going to choose the opposite side hole because I want it to flip over. So let's see, and I'm on the wrong beam. So I want this beam right here. So I'm going to choose right above the axle to the left instead of the right because I want it to flip over. Can I get it? Right there. All right, check mark to see what this looks like. And let me go back to isometric so I can take a look. Okay, so we definitely need to flip the axis. Let me close out this extra fastener window that always pops open, edit the last fastener that we just did, and first I want to rotate. Oh, no, first I want to change the axis. There we go. Now let's rotate and see if we can get it in the right spot. There we go. Check mark to accept. Okay. We have two sides of the chassis that are identical to each other, and now we get to actually attach a beam that will go across and make this one part. So we won't have that flipping problem anymore when we do fastener mates because it's going to be all attached to this fixed beam that is locked in place. So I'm actually going to jump around a little bit now. I'm going to jump to step 15 because I want to put that beam back here so that we can lock this as soon as we can. So if I look at the directions in step 15, you will see that we're going to connect a 2x10 beam. So I'm going to go to my insert menu, and I'm going to look for my 2x10. There we go, right there. Let me insert it into the workspace and check mark to accept. Okay, so I know that these 4 holes on each of these corner connectors is going to attach to the 4 holes on the end. So I'm going to go ahead and do the one that's to the locked beam first. So I'm going to use this side and attach it right here. So let me use a Fastener Mate. And I'm going to use the end hole right here on the corner connector right there. And then I'm going to use this end hole in the top right corner right there. And oh, looks like it didn't connect it. There we go. And check mark to accept. Let me see my isometric view to see what we're looking at. Okay, so it's definitely not in the right spot. Let me see if I can flip an axis. Oops, wrong window. Let me go down, open that fastener window we just made, edit. Okay, let me see what happens if I flip an axis. Okay, and then rotate. All right, that looks like it's supposed to, I think. Check mark to accept. Oh yeah, looks pretty good. Let me zoom in a little bit. Oh yeah, that looks really good. Okay, so now I want to attach this to the backside here so that we have a single piece. Okay, let's go ahead and do the Fastener Mate. And I'm going to do this top left corner because I want it to be this top left corner, but I'm going to do the other side of it in here. So let's go ahead and do this top left corner. Okay, I think that got it. Now can I flip this around and look for the top left corner? I think I can right there. Let's see what we've got. Let me check that. Check mark to accept. Notice that it all moved now. Let me go back to the isometric view. And it looks like it did it pretty good. Looks like there might be a little overlap right there. I don't think I'm going to worry about it. It looks pretty darn good. So let me go back to the isometric view. And look at that. We have a solid one-piece chassis from our 2 sides. All right, you're doing really great if you have gone this far. This has been a really difficult journey, and you should be very proud of your progress. Okay, I'm actually going to take a step back because we forgot to put this little 2x4. Oh, let me close out this window. This or 1x4, we need to have one on the other side as well. But now we won't have that problem with the chassis turning around and flipping because it's all locked in place. Okay, so let's go to the insert. And this is actually going to be step number 13 on the directions. So let's go ahead and put that 1x4 into the workspace and check mark to accept. Okay, so again, we're going to do one of these holes above or below that center hole, and we're going to fasten it to the end of this beam right here on the inside. So let me go ahead and let me zoom in to where I want it to go. Okay, let me do the fastener mate. Let me do this one above the center hole. All right, zoom out a little bit. Let me actually just go back to isometric. I always get lost in here. Okay, and now I'm going to turn it around, and let's see what happens if I do this hole right here. I'm not sure which one it's going to do, but let's find out. Accept with the green check mark, and let's see what we got. Isometric. It looks like we're going to definitely have to flip something. Yes. Okay, close out that extra window that opened. Let's go back to that fastener. Mine is fastener number 12. It should probably be the same thing on yours. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to zoom out and zoom back in so I can see it better in my workspace. All right, let's do a flip, a rotation. I think that got it. Let's check mark and see. Oh, it looks like it did. All right, we're pretty good there. Let me just go back to the isometric view. And I think we're good with that end piece on. All right, we've got two identical sides. And we are actually, looks like there might be a little bit of overlap at the end there. I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to be too picky about it. I think it looks fantastic. So I'm going to jump around a little bit and actually look at step 18. Now, step 18 is where we use a beam to connect these two corner connectors, just like we did back here. And then you add the brain. But we're going to skip the brain because it is a pretty large file. Might slow down your on shape a little bit. And we really don't need a brain to say this chassis is complete. But we do need wheels and gears. But I want to add one more 2x10 beam, just like we have across here, to go across right here. Right now we call this a U-shaped chassis because it has a U shape. If I put one across here, we call it an A-shaped chassis because it looks like the letter A. So let's put in one more beam, which is going to be a 2x10. I'm going to go ahead and place it in my workspace and check mark to accept. Okay, so I'm going to use these 2 pins here and these 2 pins here, and they're going to go into the 2 holes at the end of the beam. Now, of course, we only need to do one because this is CAD. So I'm going to use the Fastener Mate, and I'm going to zoom in, not to the top of the peg, but the bottom of the peg right there. Now I'm going to go zoom out to my beam. Now, it doesn't really matter which side you pick right now. It's going to flip it over anyways. I'm going to choose this end. Let's see if I can get it. Can I get that end hole? I think they're the top one right there. There we go. And check mark to save. And notice that when I go to my isometric view, it goes to the locked beam, so it's not going to turn all over the place. So, all right, looks like we need to close this extra fastener window and go back and edit our last one. We need to do some rotations here. So let's rotate once, twice. There we go. That looks something, it looks okay because I think we just need to do a fastener on the other side. I'm going to check mark and hit accept. Oh, it does look like that we have to offset it though. It needs to pull up on top of the, actually if I change the axes, that might work. Let's go ahead and go back in. Let me change the axis. No, let me offset. So we're going to offset, and that looks like it's going up on the, looks like it's the Z again. Let's see. It doesn't make sense that it's the Z, but let's find out. So let me just do one just to see where it goes. Okay, so that goes the wrong way. So let's do negative 0.5. And that is too high. If I can see in there. Let's do negative 0.25. That looks perfect. See how it just closed that gap a little bit? All right, now over on the other side, it looks like we're having a little problem. And that's just because we haven't constrained it yet. So let's try and see if we can do that. All right, and I think what I want to do is constrain the top of this peg to the top of that beam to make it a little bit easier. So I'm going to go ahead and do a fastener mate. I'm going to go to the top of this peg right there. Let's see if that works. These pegs can be tricky. And I want to the top of this hole. And let's see what that does. All right, I accepted it. Isometric view. All right, there we go. We are definitely, we have an A-shaped chassis here. Here's your, let me turn it the way it's supposed to be. Oh, there we go. There's your A shape right there. There's your A. Okay, let me go back to the isometric view. All right, so now we need to add on some gears. Now, in order to make the gears animate properly, that's a whole nother lesson to use this gear relation tool. And I'm not going to go over that in this lesson. If you want to see that, there is a tip video in YouTube for this gear relation tool. But in order to compete in the CAD challenges, we're not asking you to animate it. So it doesn't really matter if you just have the gears fastened onto these axles and not animated correctly. But if you do want to know how to do that, check out the tip video on the gear animation tool. Okay, so we are actually going to use all of the same gears, and they're going to go on these 3 axles and then as well on the 3 axles or pitch shafts on the other side. So I'm going to insert a gear. I'm going to go to the insert menu. We're going to use the medium size gear, which is the 36 tooth sprocket, and I'm sorry, spur gear. So I'm going to click on that. I'm actually going to place 3 in. Let's go ahead and do a second one and a third one because we're putting 3 on one side. We'll just do one side at a time. So if I turn this over, you can see we've got square holes that are going to go onto the square pitch shafts or axles. Now I'm going to fasten them so they're all onto the ends, but we might need to offset to push them a little bit closer to the beam. So here we go, my first one, Fastener Mate. I'm going to rotate this up. I'm going to find the center square of this gear, and this can be a little tricky. I saw it there pop up for a second. Oh, I saw it there again. Let's see if I can get it. These center holes are always tricky on these gears because it doesn't really act like a hole. It acts like a bunch of lines. Oh, there we go, right there. See that center? That's what we want. I want that one because it has a center point. I'm going to turn it. I'm going to go to the tip of this first pitch shaft and try and, oh, there we go, center point right there, and check mark. All right, let me go ahead and see what I've got. All right, looks pretty good. Although that gear needs to be offset so it comes in a little bit. So let's open that last Fastener Mate. Now I want you to notice I've got a bunch of exclamation marks here. This is because when we did both of these fasteners on this beam, it is probably not exactly symmetrical or aligned properly. And so, but I'm not going to worry about it because it looks right to me. So we're going to leave these errors and just keep moving forward. I'm going to go back and open this last fastened mate that I created, and I want to offset that gear so it goes closer to the beam. It looks like it's the Z axis. Let's try a negative 0.25 and see what that does. Oops, not. Let's try a negative 0.25. Looks like it went in a little bit. Let's try a negative 0.5. Let me zoom in. That looks pretty good. I want it really close to the beam. All right, check mark to accept. All right, that looks perfect. A little bit of space there is fine, just like that. Okay, perfect. Let's do our next gear. So let me turn this a little bit. It doesn't matter which gear you choose. Let me go ahead and choose this one. All right, so I'm going to do another Fastener Mate. And, oops, can't see what I'm doing here. Let's see if I can get it here. Go into the square. Not that one. I want, see, that's the inside of the gear. Let me go back to isometric and see what I can get here. All right. Scroll in, find the center of that square. There you go, right there. Zoom out. Let me go to the center of that axle, try and find the center point on the end. We will offset right there and check mark to accept. I'm going to close this out. I already know I have to offset, so let me open that back up. I probably should have just done it as we had it open. Okay, so let me offset it with a negative 0.5 and see what that looks like. I think we're going to need more than that. Oh, it looks like it went the wrong way. Let's go to negative 0.5. Okay, and check mark to accept. Let's go to the isometric view, see what we got. Oh, we definitely have to bring it in way more to line it up with that one. So let's open up that Fastener Mate again. I'm gonna try. I'm just gonna try -1 inch. Oh, we even need more than that. negative 1.5. That's too far. Let's try negative 1.25. Little too far. Let's try negative 1.15. Well, that looks pretty good. Let me check mark to accept. What I want to see is that the gears, and the gears should be exactly meshing with one another. So I want to line them up exactly. So I'm actually going to push this one in a little bit more. Let's go ahead and open up that Fastener Mate and edit. And I'm going to push it in 1.20 and see what that looks like. Oh gosh, 1.22? 1.23? I think it's 1.24. Probably 1.25 would have worked in the beginning. Gosh, that's almost perfect. I'm going to keep it at 1.24. Oh, that's silly. It must be how long this pitch shaft is. Okay, check mark to accept. And I'm going to go to the isometric view to take a look. And it looks really good. We got our 2 gears on the axles. All right, let's do our third one. I'm going to rotate this around. Go to a Fastener Mate. Scroll in. Try and find that center of that square, which is so hard to do. Got to zoom in, zoom out. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, I think I saw it right there. That might work. Even though the whole gear is highlighted, it's still the center point. So let's try and do it. Right there. And then let's go back to the axle. Go to the tip of that axle or pitch shaft. Try and find that center point. I think it worked, and I know I'm going to offset, so let's just try right now on the Z. Let's do negative 0.5. It's going the right way. Let's take a look at what that is. Check mark to accept, and isometric view. All right, needs to go a little bit more to mesh with those 2 gears right here. So close out that extra fastener window, open up that last one we just did. Let's try negative 0.8 and see what that does. Oh, that looks pretty good. Let me zoom in. I think it's perfect. Check mark to accept. It looks great. Okay, so I'm going to go to isometric view, and you notice we've got 3 gears on those 3 axles, those 3 pitch shafts. So we're going to do the same thing on this side. So now you know how to do it. I'm just going to speed this up a little bit, but you can look for those centers of the hole and then place it on the center of the axle. So let's add 3 more. So I'm just speeding this up a little bit. You know the process. I'm looking for the center point of the gear and looking for the center point of the pitch shaft, trying to offset it. You're just going to keep playing with this until you get 3 different gears on the other 3 axles or pitch shafts on the left side of the chassis. So notice here when I'm done with putting all of the gears onto the pitch shafts that I have all the teeth lined up and meshing with each other so that when one gear spins, it'll spin the other gear. So we're going to call this the end of lesson 3, and we are very close to finishing our chassis. All we have left to do is add wheels and rubber shaft collars onto these axles, just very similar to what we've been doing. To get 4 wheels, and the shaft collars we used in our constraints lesson is to make sure everything stays in place. All right, congratulations. We have almost finished an entire subsystem, and we will finish in the next lesson, lesson 4. Thanks for watching.